The United Kingdom is importing and exporting significantly less than it did before it left the European Union, according to an analysis by the Financial Times newspaper. The Financial Times reached the conclusion after crunching data published by the UK's official information agency, the Office for National Statistics, or ONS. The paper said the data shows goods trade fell during the 5 years between 2018 and 2023 at the fastest 5-year rate on record, with imports slumping by 3.8% and exports crashing by 12.4%. Experts said the nation's exit from the EU, known as Brexit, which was completed when it pulled out of the Union's single market and customs union on December 31st in 2020, at least for that part completed, was clearly the major reason for the decline. Emily Fry, an economist at the Resolution Foundation think tank, said most recent economic data has been muddied by the impact of the coronavirus pandemic and by fast rising energy prices linked to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the war, but that the imports-export slowdown over the 5-year period illuminated by the analysis on the ONS data was a big sign Brexit was largely to blame. A clear implication of this data is that the new trade barriers that were put in place by Brexit are having an effect on trade. That's what she told the Financial Times. And John Springford, Deputy Director of the Centre for European Reform think tank, told the paper other major economies had fared better during the same period, despite also being impacted by the pandemic and high energy prices. The UK's weak trade performance is unusual among advanced economies, he said. The obvious culprit is Brexit. And the UK economy's poor performance in goods trading was further exposed in the latest report from the nation's official spending watchdog, the Office for Budget Responsibility, which said trade intensity, which is the share of the economy made up of imports and export, I talked about this week already, was 1.7% smaller in 23 than in 2019, which contrasted poorly with the average across the rest of the G7, where it was 1.9% larger. The UK's Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt, responded to concerns about the economy on the BBC's Sunday with Laura Kuenssberg programme by insisting the UK was on track to quickly rebound from recent challenges. People will know that we have been through a very difficult period and that the government has a clear plan for the economy that is creating jobs, bringing investments into the UK, growing faster than similar European countries, he said. And Rishi Sunak claimed the UK economy is getting on the right track as he visited the site of the former Honda car factory. The Japanese car giant's plant in Swindon shut in 2021 with the loss of thousands of jobs, and the site was sold to developer Panattoni to turn into a logistics hub. Addressing Panattoni staff working on the demolition and reconstruction of the site, the Prime Minister said, in the last 5 years, the firm has begun developing more than 25 million square feet of industrial space. And before Chancellor Jeremy Hunt delivered his pre-election budget, Mr. Sunak said, I think that's a huge vote of confidence in the UK, and it shows that the work we are doing to get the economy on the right track is paying off. Now I'm determined as Prime Minister to make sure that the UK is the best place in the world to invest and grow a business like this. And that's why we've been taking ambitious steps like making full expensing permanent, which is the biggest business tax cut in modern British history. It's all about supporting businesses like this to invest in local areas and create jobs and opportunity for the future, he said. Mr. Sunak spoke to Panattoni staff working on the demolition and reconstruction of the site, as said, and was really playing out some positiveness there. Mr. Hunt reiterated his desire to move towards a lower tax economy, but in a responsible way, ruling out borrowing to pay for a pre-election giveaway. He dodged questions on whether the Tory government is pinching Labour's policies and it is thought he is considering abolishing the so-called non-dom tax status as a way of raising revenue, a long-standing pledge made by Sir Keir Starmer's party. You'll have to see on Wednesday precisely what I'm going to announce, is what the Chancellor told broadcasters at the time. But let me be clear, there is a plan for growth compared to the Labour Party that has just had to abandon the central plan that they had for growth. This 28 billion number that one day they were supporting, the next day they weren't. Well, just to get back to this thing, the closure of the Honda plant was announced in 2019 in the wake of Brexit. Although the firm insisted that this was not the reason, instead blaming unprecedented changes in the global car industry. Yeah, whatever. Given the bleak election forecast for the Conservative Tories, Chancellor Jeremy Hunt faced an important rescue mission, though. Shortly before the near death of the Conservative government, he had to revive British voters' favour. And shortly after midday in the House of Commons, he conjured up a veritable potpourri of tax measures from the famous red budget suitcase that are intended to make everyday life for the British people better and cheaper. 40,000 pubs and their customers should benefit from the alcohol tax being temporarily frozen. Likewise, diesel and petrol taxes. This is intended to relieve the mobility burden on British taxpayers. The wage deduction for the state healthcare system will even be reduced. The employees primarily would benefit from this. Pensioners do not pay social security contributions in Great Britain anyway. The loss of income of the equivalent of around 10 billion pounds is to be compensated for, among other things, with an efficiency program. And according to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, digitalization and artificial intelligence should relieve the strain on today's ailing healthcare system and make it more productive. A reduction in income tax would have been more politically potent, an election promise from the Prime Minister and also an urgent wish from the Conservative electorate. But there simply isn't enough money for that. Even those tax gifts are not free. They must be compensated for with additional income and savings. The opposition will probably have to deal with this problem one day if it wins the elections. The Labour Party reacted accordingly angrily. The Conservatives had once promised to repair the roof, and after 14 years in power, they broke all the windows and ultimately burned the entire house down. That wouldn't be surprising. In an election year, the presentation of the budget is not a rational economics lesson, but a political manifestation. In African countries, for example, people talk about handouts when politicians hand out small envelopes with money before elections. In our latitudes, such gifts are disguised as tax cuts. Well, the election will show whether they are enough to convince the impatient Conservative electorate and the disillusioned British public. And if you want to know more, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.